Hello and welcome to the Sound Up Seattle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Seattle and Washington sports. I'm your host, Tyler Cartwright, joined as always by my co-host,
John Carey.
And let me throw away that microphone stand. John likes to watch me talk with my hands in the mic. Today we've got some lovely Seahawks discussion, not so lovely Seahawks loss discussion about the 49ers last week. And then we hop into some college football, some little bit of Kraken, a little bit of Sounders, and then obviously we've got our value dogs. Anything else, John, before we get started?
Just how handsome you look in that jersey. Let's go Blues, huh?
Thanks, baby. I love your computer light flashing back and forth depending on what your background is. It's going to be great.
It's going to be happening all night.
He's at a hotel room in Vegas right now, just vibing.
Vegas, Okanagan, Washington. The Las Vegas of Washington. North Central Washington.
All right, here is some Coyote Picnic. All right, John. First things first, let's talk last week. It's been, at this point, we're recording Thursday night. It has been 4 days since, with the Guinness on hand. I love to see it.
That's correct.
It has been 4 days since what was, in my opinion, a pretty rough loss to the 49ers, 36-24 on Sunday afternoon. How are we feeling?
Okay, yeah, jumping right into Seahawks. I was hoping to save the pain, but no, let's do it. Let's rip the Band-Aid.
We get it over with here.
Yeah, this was a tough one. I think it went wrong in the way that we anticipated it could go wrong, and then also went wrong in ways that we didn't necessarily anticipate. So that's called a fun double whammy. I think 1,000 feet overview, this highlighted some defensive deficiencies that we've been seeing develop over the course of this year. First 2 weeks of the season, we were feeling pretty optimistic about this Mike McDonald defense and what he was able to do. And recently, this defense has completely reverted into arguably worse than our Pete Carroll-led defense last year. The way we've played the last couple of weeks, the Hawks defense looks like one of the bottom 5 in the NFL, and that's not a good place to be, obviously. So, a lot of defensive issues, and then also some fun issues on offense. Yeah,
I think we really see the defensive inefficiencies here. You look at our Pro Football Reference team defense, just statistically, our yards per pass is, we're 20th in the league. And our rushing defense is just so poor. And I think recently it's probably been because of the absence of Byron Murphy, who was a very nice defensive piece early in the season. But at the same time, you kind of look and you're like, okay, those first 3 games, we were not playing against, the upper echelon of opponents. We went into overtime against the Patriots. We had, we thought the Giants were bad, but we were getting beat up a little bit by them too. And we ended up losing that game. It's just been kind of a weird stretch, and I don't really know where the Seahawks defense goes from here. They get Byron Murphy back this weekend, but I don't think getting one guy is going to totally fix this rushing defense. And I know we're down one of our safeties. Jenkins is put on the IR this week, so I just think our defense is kind of in shambles, to be honest. And I don't know. This 49ers, their third and fourth string running backs were running all over us last week. And it's just it was tough to watch. And, for all intents and purposes, Geno, we can hop into the Geno side of things maybe in a bit. Do you have anything else to say on the defensive side? Because I've got some things to say about Geno, kind of a rough day for him.
You called it on our defense's inability to stop the run. Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerendo really tore us wide open, which is a very scary sign to think that we will likely be going up against Christian McCaffrey in a couple of weeks. But we knew that the defensive line was going to be an issue, especially with the injuries up front. I think what was most disappointing to me was our inability to limit yards after the catch in the secondary. Because, obviously, Purdy was able to do basically whatever he wanted. There was very little pressure generated over the course of the game. And their running game was really successful. But I just wanted to shout out Deebo Samuel, first came back off of injuries. 3 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. That's 34 yards per reception. Most of that yak, obviously. And a big part of that was he was just big boying our defensive backs and our safeties. Either avoiding contact or, out physicaling them to get past them and generate extra yards. He was a man amongst boys out there, and that was discouraging, because with the injuries on the defensive line, you can anticipate balls finding their targets, but then you have to stop them there, and that was not happening. They were running free against us basically all game. So, yeah, we kind of anticipated the defense being a mess. It was a little messier than we had hoped, but I think the offenses might be a little more interesting to talk about because that's where there may have been more developments coming from last week.
Yeah, I think one other thing that I wanted to hit on is our defense and our defensive line actually is, I think, kind of a top 5 defensive line. When you look at statistically what they're able to do in terms of pressures, they have 68 pressures. That's the second most in all of the NFL right now. When you look at percentage of the time that we hurry the quarterback, that's top 6, I think. They're 6th. They're doing a good job of getting to the quarterback. They have not been able to finish as frequently as I think, would have liked. And really just their ability to access the quarterback hasn't been as nice. And I think this is kind of what we saw, or what we've seen in football in general, where it's like, we can get to the quarterback, but all it is these check down passes. And like you're talking about the yards after the catch, these check down passes. And then it's all on our, cornerbacks and safeties who have really an inability to tackle effectively. I remember there was one play made by Julian Love, and everybody was commenting, or the commentators were commenting on how big that tackle was on, a third down stop. And it's like, that's such a rare thing for the Seahawks defense to get, just because it's been really tough. And that's kind of just how football is being played right now. It's check downs and trying to get some yards after the catch in total. So just kind of wanted to point that out. Seahawks are kind of victims of the current state of the NFL. Yeah.
Yep, that's very real. I was discouraged. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about the offense. The passing game, to see, Geno's one of the best guys we've discussed before, one of the only guys in the NFL pushing the ball down the field, getting guys, with 15, 16 average yards per catch. Kenneth Walker in this game, inability on the ground, 14 carries, 32 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. 8 receptions for 37 yards. That's a 4.5 yard per reception average. That's just atrocious. And, the running is a little bit more on him and a little bit more on the offensive line. But that receiving thing, that's him and that's Geno, and that's also just the state of the NFL. And I think we're seeing defenses getting better at adjusting of like, no, we're not going to let your running backs get 7 yards a catch out of the backfield in the flat. We're just not going to do it.
Yep.
We're moving up and protecting those things. Kind of the push and pull of NFL defenses is, nothing lasts for long. And so what we're seeing, there's this two high safety thing introduced really to stop the Chiefs back in the day. And it's kind of revolutionized defense in the NFL, made attacking deep downfield almost impossible, and it opened up the short stuff. And now guess what? Defenses are starting to adjust. They're moving up. Suddenly, the New Orleans Saints no longer look like the best offense in the NFL after 2 weeks because defenses aren't letting Alvin Kamara do whatever he wants around the line of scrimmage. So I do think we're seeing in very real time defenses counteract a lot of those trends. And honestly, of all the teams in the NFL, the Hawks should be relatively unaffected by that change because they've been attacking downfield anyway. This should be making their lives easier. But there's a lot to talk about their offensive game plan and the results of what happened in this game offensively. I don't want to monopolize the time. What did you think of how this team performed offensively?
Yeah, I think when you look at the numbers, box score wise, you think, oh man, Geno did not have a good game. He, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I think it was just over 300 yards. That's all well and good, but for Geno, the 2 interceptions really stands out just because you don't usually see that from Geno. We're used to a 1 touchdown game with 0 interceptions, 300 yards. Like, just get the guys to the 20-yard line, and then we'll finish it out somehow besides you getting a touchdown pass, because that's how fantasy people love their Geno Smith. I think when you look at the kind of in-depth numbers, though, you see that Geno is hurried the most out of any quarterback in all of football right now. His time to pass, I think, is sub 2 seconds from what I saw at some point. I was looking at these numbers, I think, after the game when I was like, what is happening with this? And Geno's the fastest guy getting the ball out. He just has no time. Our linemen just cannot support the deep routes that Geno is good at throwing. And when it comes to, short routes and things like that, JSN's great, but Tyler Lockett and DK are not the best at running short routes. And so what you see is just like an inefficiency in how the team is constructed between DK he needs time to be able to get open, run by receivers because he's more of a vertical runner. We know that, or a slant runner. And then Tyler Lockett is the best at finding spots when his quarterback has time and is able to scramble out of the pocket, which is just not something that Geno does. So really the only connection there that makes a ton of sense, and Geno's deep ball is great, but with the way that our line is set up, JSN and Geno really have to be on their game. Otherwise, this team is really going to struggle. And Geno's he's just not mobile enough with this offensive line. He's been sacked, I think, like the fourth most out of all quarterbacks. Sorry. It's just been tough.
Yeah, I think that's a good note, kind of the contradiction between the construction and the reality of this team. Part of that is, front office stuff and coaching stuff going into the season of, hey, if you want to build dice them up deep attack, maybe invest a little bit in your offensive line so that you have the time necessary to get the ball down the field. I don't know. Sounds like a relatively novel idea. But, with that, but you called it out right. DK is the ultimate vertical threat, super limited on any routes that don't involve a man streaking down the field like a bat out of hell. Lockett works best on the edges. You still need time to set up those corner and bench routes. And even a guy like Noah Fant, our primary tight end, that is a seam attacking tight end. He is not a guy that, runs a lot of, short little dig routes. He likes to run down the middle of the seams and attack with his speed. So, you're right. This team wants to look down. Geno wants to move his eyes down the field, and he's not always getting the opportunities to do that. This is also just like, there's a lot to say about this Geno game. Now, obviously, the number one Geno detractor in the state of Washington is sitting here talking right now. And I can't decide if I really should be mad at Geno or not, because any 2-pick game I'm very disappointed with, especially, with Geno being the guy he is. I don't think he has the excuses to be throwing interceptions the way a guy like Josh Allen does. But he is also not a guy that we are supposed to ask to throw the ball 52 times.
Yeah.
I know a lot of that's game script. I understand that they were down big early and had to try and crawl back, which is why they only ran the ball 20 times. But, they even ran the ball 20 times. This is a game where they had like 78 offensive plays. Speaks to just how much offense there was in this game, how short and successful those 49ers drives were. But, I can't decide whether or not I'm allowed to be frustrated with Geno for throwing 2 picks when it was 2 picks on 52 attempts in a negative game script. So, there's a bigger conversation to be had about the Hawks now, and I think now is a good time to have it. This 3-0 start, people were really excited. We've solved all our problems. Geno is God. But much like the New Orleans Saints, this team has tumbled from a very exciting start to a much more discomforting present at 3-3. Matchup next week against the 4-2 Falcons. And where is this team? What is their direction? How do they improve? And I think those are kind of tough questions because defensively they have injury issues. They also have personnel issues. And offensively, there seems to be a real disconnect between the offensive weapons that this team has and the way that Ryan Day wants to, put them out there. Did I just say Ryan Day? Not the Ohio State head coach.
I figured you were just gonna wave by that. Call it just Ryan.
Ryan the man, Ryan Grubb. Been watching a lot of Ohio State content roasting Ryan Day about the Oregon loss, which is stuck in my brain. But Grubb wants to play the way that Geno wants to play and the way that DK wants to play. He wants to attack downfield. But you cannot do that unless you have an offensive line that's above median in the NFL, and this offensive line is not. So after the 3-0 start, I was ready to be a believer. I think right now I'm feeling my most pessimistic about the outcome of this team's season.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in the same boat as you. We were both, like we said at the beginning of the season, we both thought this team would be about 500, and that 3-0 start might have got me a little bit more excited, but I didn't think I, strayed too far. I still think this is an 8-9, 9-8 type team. And yeah, the problems are so visible when it comes to, you saw the clip of DK yelling at Ryan Grubb. I'm sure that was circulating all over Twitter and Instagram and whatnot about just, he wants certain plays to be run. And it's like Ryan Grubb would love those plays to be run. He would love to be able to get the ball deep to DK and let him, do his thing, especially with Geno. And those three as a trio probably make one of the more exciting, QB, wide receiver, offensive coordinator combinations. And then you just look at the limitations in the run game because this offensive line is so bad. The offensive line can't go hit people to create holes for Kenneth Walker to run through. 14 carries for 32 yards. We didn't talk about how bad that was. That's like 2.3 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Like that's awful. And this team ran the ball 20 times out of their 72 total offensive plays. It's just, they're just unable to get anything going because of their line. And so Ryan Grubb either needs to figure out a new scheme where when it comes to, I like to call it kind of pick and popping with the tight end, like, set a little block and then throw a quick screen pass, get a little chunk yardage, those kinds of things, and just do that the entire game. Like, I know you want to take a shot and maybe take 1 or 2 shots during the game, but at this point, you just need those 4-yard plays every single time because that's how football is played right now. That is like the entirety of football. That's why it kind of is a little boring because everybody at the start of the season was like, how do we adjust to this? And the Seahawks have slowly, I think, been figuring out that they just kind of need to take it chunk by chunk. And at the same time, their defense has been absolutely atrocious. So it's like it's been quite the tough 3-game stretch against what I would argue are 2 very good offensive teams and 1 middling offensive team.
Sure. And obviously, this very good Niners offense, which, we both have a lot of respect for. They're missing arguably their most potent weapon, but, the point is still well received. I just think, it's easy. It's very easy to put on your hindsight glasses and be like, hey, maybe this is why, instead of taking Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is obviously a very talented player and a fun thing to wave around, those are the places you need to invest in your offensive line because you hit the nail on the head. Grubb, Geno, DK, the 3 kind of heads of this offense down the line, all want to play the same way. But to play that way, they need help in an area where Jackson Smith-Njigba cannot assist them. This team would probably be more effective running the scheme they want to run without Jackson Smith and with a good offensive line. Get a good left guard for Geno. And it's not rare to see teams mess this up. There's nothing teams like, trust me, I'm a Colts fan. No, there's nothing teams like to do more than draft a 2nd or 3rd round wide receiver and say that he's going to be a stud instead of investing in the line that protects the most important player on your team. So, I guess with that being said, maybe a good point to move into our discussion about this upcoming game against Atlanta. My initial thoughts are, I don't feel very good about it. This is a 4-2 Atlanta team that could easily be 5-1 if referees weren't in love with Patrick Mahomes. And they have scored 38 and 36 points in their last 2 games, respectively. Their offense is clicking in a real way, behind Kirk Cousins and Bijan Robinson. And they're, going to come in and play this Hawks defense, which has been absolutely floundering, and I'm worried they're going to put up 45 against us.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. The one thing that I will say, Byron Murphy's supposed to come back this weekend. And then everybody loves Kobe Bryant, the, I guess at this point, backup.
Rest in peace.
Well, Kobe Bryant on the Seahawks, the backup cornerback or safety. I don't remember what position exactly he plays. I'm assuming he's coming in for Jenkins at the safety position. Everybody loves him because he's able to disrupt receivers. Like he's really good at, forcing fumbles and that kind of thing. When he was in limited playing time last year, and I think the year before as well, he was really good. And so that's a little exciting just for him to get some more time. And I think this defense will be better. It's also worth noting that the Falcons have been playing against, I think who did they play? The Buccaneers went into overtime where they scored 36 points on them. And then who did they play last week? I don't think they played anybody.
The Panthers are not very good.
Played anybody good.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit, things have swayed the Falcons' way purely because of who they've been playing. The Buccaneers, they put up points. They put up 51 points on the Saints last, I guess, 2 weeks ago now. But the Saints just put up 3 points, or I guess 10 points against the Broncos this week. So, and the Saints are like nothing to write home about. So,
well, are we absolutely certain that the Buccaneers aren't better than the Seahawks? Their offense looks really, really good.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. But I'm talking about the Seahawks defense versus the Falcons. I think the Buccaneers defense, they have Vita Vea, who's obviously a ex UW or UW alum guy. We love him, but
yeah, class of what, 84? The dude's ancient.
He was what, 20? I think he was 2018, 2019. Same year as Jake Browning.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
But I think the Seahawks defense will compare to the Buccaneers. I think this is actually going to be a good game. The question is whether or not we can get our offense rolling. And I think we've been able to get our offense rolling to a decent amount. If we could score 29 points, I wouldn't be shocked if we win this game 29-28. Like it could be close. But we will definitely see what can happen. This run defense, Byron Murphy is going to need to be back in tip-top shape against Bijan and Algiers. So
yeah, not only against the run game, but also get some pressure on Kirk. I mean, Kirk has been dicing teams up. He's been looking like he's in midseason form right now for them. So yeah, Byron's going to have to come in and pull double duty right off the bat, being our best run defender and also getting some pressure on the quarterback. So bless the rookie, a tough situation to be in, and I wish him success. I think you're a little more optimistic than I am. I'm worried about this game. I think the Falcons offense is going to do whatever it wants, and I think the Hawks will be able to score. I would like this to be more of a repeat of the Detroit game, where it's just a score fest and hopefully we can come out on top. I worry that it'll be more like the Niners game, where it's going to be a one-sided score fest where we're always trying to catch up. Yeah, trying to avoid those negative game scripts is going to be really, really important. And yeah, this will be a good test. A good test. Currently, Falcons -3, which may come into play later for us.
Yeah, we will see. One thing to note: Seattle had a chance to come back against San Francisco there. Granted, there was the missed call on the muffed punt, or what should have been a muffed punt, but they had a chance to take the lead late and just. I think it was the second Geno interception where they gave it up with a couple minutes left and the 49ers just kind of ran it out. But they were in that game, I think, a little later than it seemed score-wise. But you're right. I think either way, this could get away from the Seahawks if they don't keep pace. And we will see how big of an influence Byron Murphy is on this defense. If the Seahawks win this game, we might need to talk about some Byron Murphy defensive rookie of the year type stuff. We will see.
There's already been buzz about that. Byron is an absolute stud, maybe the steal of the draft. We love that pick when it happens, and we still love it now. So
for sure.
Whether or not he is able to completely turn our season around on his big, brawny rookie shoulders should not impact the fact that he is right up there in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. The dude's a stud.
Yes.